Hey everyone, this is Brian Ferguson, the host of Bumps and Thumps, the talk of wrestling. We are on here today because of you, viewers and watchers like you. In order to continue the podcast, we need to monetize our YouTube channel so we can get guests on that require financial compensation. That's where viewers like you come in. If you subscribe today, we can get that number up to 1,000. And as an incentive, the 1,000th subscriber will receive a free t-shirt just like this and receive a book from the legendary George Shire on his Minnesota Golden Age of Wrestling, from Vern Gagne to the Road Warriors, signed by George Shire himself. So please get on there, tell your friends to subscribe today, and when you hit that 1,000 mark, you're going to get a t-shirt like this. I'm going to reach out to you. You're going to be coming on the show as a guest and receive that book, the Minnesota's Golden Age of Wrestling, from Vern Gagne to the Road Warriors, signed by George Shire. So get on there today, subscribe, and please enjoy the podcast.
Did you ever wonder what could have been with the AWA had things gone differently? Had their fortunes gone differently? Had certain wrestlers not left and perhaps more money would have been at the disposal of the Gagnes? Well, wonder no further. You can go to Brad Drake's YouTube channel and experience the 1987 Supermod for yourself, as Brad Drake starts off in May 1987 along with Greg Gagne, Baron Von Raschke, Vern Gagne himself, Nick Bockwinkel, Larry Zbyszko, Kurt Hennig, and a slew of others as he plays and saves the AWA.
I'm Brian Ferguson. My guest today is one of the best known Canadian pro wrestlers. He is best known for his time in the WWF with his brother Raymond, as the Rougeau Brothers, as the Mountie, as one half of the Quebecers with Carl Oullet. He is a three-time WWF World Tag Team Champion, as well as a former WWF Intercontinental Champion. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Jacques Rougeau.
Hey,
Jacques, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Brian. What a great intro. You know, you should be working on the radio.
Well, thank you. Hey, a little bit, you are such a well-known person. And, you know, you and your brother, Raymond, were the Rougeau Brothers, we're working with Jimmy Hart.
The fabulous
Rougeaus. And, you know, I am so glad I was able to get you on here. It's such an honor. I just want to tell you that up front first. So,
well, you know, you're lucky. You know why? Because, you know, we don't like heavy metal. We don't like rock and roll. All we like to listen to is Barry Manilow. Hey, we're on. Those are the good days. Huh? Those are the good days.
Yeah. All right, Jacques, if we could, I want to start a bit about your beginning. You come from a wrestling family. Your dad, legendary Jacques Rougeau Sr. Talk about what it was like growing up in a wrestling family. I mean, your brother Raymond's a few years older than you, and your brother Armand is a year younger than you. But what was it like growing up in a wrestling family?
Well, first of all, my brother Raymond, yes, was older than me, but my brother Armand was also older than me.
He is? Okay.
But he was younger than me in the business. He came in later. So Armand wasn't as passionate that much. It was mostly like he decided to do it later on. After his garage, mechanical garage didn't work, he decided to become a wrestler. It wasn't his first passion. But yeah, it was amazing to grow up. You know, we're 4 generations of wrestlers in the family, and you know, like my great uncle Eddie Auger was what a guy. Everybody loved him, and then my uncle Johnny Rougeau, who was so famous in Montreal, like amazing. He was a I know you know about the French, the Quebec always trying to separate from Canada, and there was this prime minister, René Lévesque, who was really trying to get that happen. And my uncle Johnny was his right-hand man. He was into politics a lot. My uncle Johnny was also president of the hockey league, the junior hockey league.
Oh, wow.
He did so many things. My uncle Johnny was implicated in a lot of things around like the whole province and around the whole country. He was the political kind of guy, like, you know, getting his fingers and everything into every pie that was possible, you know. And then there was my father Jacques, who was completely the opposite. My father was the tough guy of the family. Now, my father was the tough one. He was like 6'4", 240 pounds. My uncle Johnny, he owned a nightclub in Montreal called the Macambo, where Tina Turner, Chubby Checker, and all those great American superstars, they'd come and entertain in Montreal. And my uncle Johnny owned that place, the Macambo. But my father was the doorman. He was the man. He was working at the door. So if ever there was all these Marines that used to come from around the world, they come up St. Lawrence River, and they'd get to Montreal, and they hadn't seen a woman in 25 days, and then they come to the nightclub, and sometimes they get carried away with a little bit of beer and stuff, and there were tough guys in there. And my father was the one who had to keep them in line there, you know. So my father was also the champion in Golden Gloves boxing. My father was a champion of Golden Gloves. Yeah, so my father was a real tough guy. So whenever my Uncle Johnny, who owned the business in Montreal when I was like 4, 5, 6 years old, he would very often have some problems in the company where either a wrestler wouldn't want to drop the title, or he wanted a raise in money at the last minute, you know. And then my Uncle Johnny would call my father, very humble, very quiet, and he'd say, "Yeah, Jacques, you know, Dick Taylor doesn't want to drop the belt tonight at the Forum. There's 20,000 people." He said, and he says, "Would you have a talk with him?" You know, and then my father would get there early, and he'd go talk to him a little bit. And you know, my father was my idol all my life, but he was such a tough guy. And you know, I knew that from reputation around home, but I knew that more than that. I knew that when I traveled the world, because when I traveled the world with the WWF, a lot of the places we go in Japan or everywhere around the world, we'd be the night of an event where there's 20,000 people. There was always those old timers that would come in the dressing room, and they'd always come up to me and they'd say, "You know, your father was Jacques, huh?" I said, "Yeah, he's a tough guy, you know, he's a tough guy, you know." And that was in Japan. So his reputation of my dad was made, you know. So I've been brought up since I was a kid in wrestling, and that's been my whole life, actually.
Yeah, that is, when you got trained by your dad, and then you went to work.
Raymond. I got trained by Raymond, and Pierre Lefebvre also. Pierre Lefebvre. Yeah, Pierre Lefebvre trained me a lot, you know. So
now, did you start out in Stu Hart's Calgary Stampede?
Well, you know, I did a lot of backyard wrestling before that. You know, like at the age of 15, I actually started wrestling at the age of 6 in the backyard and around the pool. But, you know, we're wearing a sheet on my head and acting like I was the Sheik and Abdullah the Butcher, imitating them. But I officially started in a ring when I was about 15 or 16 years old, and there was this little places where there was 40 people, 4 people, 10 people, but you know, in little places around my home, and I did a lot of amateur things like that were put together, and I learned a little bit there. But my first territory was Stu Hart, definitely, yes.
What was that like for you working there? I mean, you probably learned a lot, because I've heard a lot of stories about Stu and
you learn not to go downstairs in the basement. You know, that's what you learn. But yeah, you know what? At the time, it's so funny because Brett was driving the bus at the time. He wasn't even a wrestler. And I remember coming back from Saskatoon one night. We had a 12-hour trip on Thursday night coming from Saskatoon back to Calgary, because it was Stampede Wrestling on Friday night in Calgary, and we had an all-night drive to do. And Brett was driving the bus one night, and we hit a moose. We hit a moose on the way back.
No!
Yeah, so I guess he started to take bumps and thumps there, you know. But he was refereeing the matches. He was setting up the ring, and you know, and it was magic because it was my first territory. And you know, Stu Hart was one of the guys that had a lot of respect for my dad. And so when I got there, you know, even before seeing me in the ring or anything, he showed me so much respect. On Sundays, you know, we had a day off, he'd invite me at his home. I thought because he liked me, and then I realized because he wanted to take me down in the basement. But he'd have me over for dinner at his house with the 100 cats in the house and all his 27 kids, you know. And but it was amazing, you know. Yes, I learned so much because it was my first official professional territory. You had guys like Kazavubu, John Foley, Patty Ryan. You had Hubert Gallant. You had I'm trying, big guys that knew how to wrestle, that were professional. So I hope Oki Sakina, what was his name? The Oki Shakina and John Foley, and anyway, a lot of the guys that were veterans in the business. So Norman Frederick Charles III. I don't know if you ever heard that name. But anyway, they're veterans. I'm old, so those guys were older than you. That's why you don't know them. So when you go and you have a chance to work with these guys in the territory, and you're I was just like 1 month old in the business, professionally in the big league. So it was amazing. I did learn a lot. Really.
Yeah. After working in Calgary, when did you get your push to go to the WWF? When did that happen?
I got that push by working hard over the years. When I started in Calgary, I won't be lying to you. I was about 180 pounds, and I was like my father and my friends and family at home, they called me Bones. I was about 6'3", and I was 180 pounds, and they called me Bones. And my dad kept telling me, no, you're not going, you're not ready. But I was stubborn. And so I went to see my mom, and I told her, I said, Mom, you need to lend me $500, and I promise I'll give it back to you. And so I went against my father's will, but it was a story of my life. I've always challenged the things that I wasn't supposed to or I couldn't do, and so I went from territory in 1977. I was there, and then 78. Then again, my father came in the conversation when I told him that I had an invitation to go to Mexico City to wrestle. And then my father told me, don't do that. Says, don't do that. You'll see, it's not what you think. It's not what you think. And so I went. And so then I went to Kansas City, and then I went to Nashville for Nick Goulas, riding up the road with Dutch Mantel, Randy Savage, and Angelo Popo, his father. And I told Joey, what was the other guy, Gypsy Joe, and all those guys. So and then I went to Kansas City for Bob Geigel and Bob Brown, and I went to Tennessee for the Fullers. I went to Pensacola for the Fullers. I went for the Grahams in Florida. Then I ended up in Atlanta, Georgia, for Ole Anderson and Dusty Rhodes, and then working for, that was one of the greatest breaks I had at those times, because I was seen on TBS every week. And TBS wasn't like, contrary all the other territories that you'd be seen locally in every state, in your own state. And when you were at TBS, you'd be seen from Boston to Los Angeles. You'd be seen every weekend, on Saturdays and Sundays. So I had a chance to work with Ric Flair then. I was very young, and a lot of guys. So you make your chance and your opportunities. It's like by grinding and going on the road. And I even had to change my name at one point. I was getting beat so bad. My name was Jerry Roberts, but I was getting beat so bad that the boys would call me Jerry Jobber. But it was okay. It was okay, because every time I went into the ring, I learned. When I went to Mexico, I learned how to do those backflips, and everything was good for me where I went somewhere. And then you have to learn. There's a lot more than that. A lot of people think you just go to learn in the business, but no, you got to learn the outside of the business. You got to learn it's time to put your foot down to say no to the promoter. It's time to stand up for yourself. It's time to say, well, if you don't give me what I want, then I'm leaving, even though you don't want to leave because you have nowhere to go. There's a lot of bluffing and a lot of hard working outside in the ring to make it in the business, in that era anyway, in those days.
Do you ever wonder what would happen if
you give a dad a podcast?
I'm what you call a nerdy fan. I nerd out at this stuff hardcore.
You'll hear me talk about anime on here. You'll hear me talk about Power Rangers. You'll hear me talk about wrestling on here.
Okay.
I had an axe handle with a Twisted Tea on it. It was right after that Twisted Tea video went viral. And man, they went out and grabbed it and smacked a dude in the head with it. It was so... That's great.
I'd like to think of this podcast as a nostalgia moment for me. It's a show where I can talk about whatever I want.
I'm a human and animal chiropractor. There was a picture of me. It looked like I was on the side of a ramen box over in China. But
so I took my kids with me to Comic-Con.
I thought that was really cool.
Well, I don't know if my wife should listen to this podcast. We'll cut that part out.
You hope. Be like, and then Robert said this.
If You Give a Dad a Podcast. Available now on all podcasting platforms.
Right. Yeah. I just remember you when you were, it was probably, I don't know, mid 80s when you came to WW with your brother Raymond and you were the Rougeau brothers. And I just can remember you guys coming in all happy, waving the flags. And what was that experience? I mean, you're national. I mean, you were at the TBS, but you are national now with your brother. So what was that like? I mean,
well, national was something to TBS and all that, but when you became worldwide with the WWF, that was a different story. Our first tour that we did was in Australia, you know. So it was like this is different now. You were in a different league here. We're around the world, noticed around the world, and it was great to be. I remember coming in the first year in 1986 in New York to meet Vince and all that. And one of the first matches I had in New York, Madison Square Garden, was against the Iron Sheik. And you could go see that on YouTube. You could go see Jacques Rougeau versus the Iron Sheik. And I got a win over the Iron Sheik, who just lost the WWF world title to Bob Backlund. So that was fun. But then as we worked hard, Raymond and I consider ourselves as great workers. At that time, we had a lot of experience and we knew the business, but we were French Canadians, and that played against us. You know, that played against us because no American wants to have a French Canadian as a hero. You know, not in those days. Americans want to have a hacksaw Jim Duggan as a hero, or they want to have Americans like Hulk Hogan, and they're very patriotic. You know, you guys are very patriotic, and you've always been. So when Vince came up with the idea of us turning heels for the first time and getting the flags and starting to laugh at you guys, like, wishing you a great Memorial Day when it was Independence Weekend, mixing up the saying that, hey, we just moved to Memphis, and we love America, and people knew it wasn't sincere, so that created a great ton of heat, and then plus we had the luxury. And I'm saying the luxury of having Jimmy Hart as our manager, because Jimmy Hart, he did our famous song, one of the most famous songs in the WWF up till now, is All American Boys. And so Jimmy composed that. And so it was a great time for Raymond and I, and so much great matches with the Rockers, with the Hart Foundations. And, and we toured the world. I wrestled the Hart Foundation for 4 years. I wrestled the Hart Foundation, Jim the Anvil Neidhart with Bret Hart, with Jimmy Hart as their manager for 2 years when we were babyfaces. And then we switched heels and they switched babyface. So then we started another 2 years around the world, but we had Jimmy Hart as our manager. So 4 years I did with these guys. And then the Rockers came, and then different guys came in. So it was a great time, the Fabulous Rougeau Brothers.
Did you want to turn heel? Were excited about it, or was it you were like a little hesitant because you guys were baby faces? I'm pretty sure most of your career up to that point.
I was thinking of my Uncle Johnny there. He was in his grave. I was wondering if he was going to be turning in his grave when he found out that we turned heels, because we worked on the Rougeau name so all these years, like 75 years of reputation of the Rougeau brothers and family. So we took a little bit of. It took us a little like 24 hours before we gave the answer to Vince. We asked him a little bit of time to just regroup and to see, hey, me and Raymond, we went to the hotel room and we talked that night. Like, we're in a position right now, Raymond, where we're having great matches. Like every time we come out to the crowd, it was like, the Rougeau brothers. And then at the end of the match was, wow, what a match. But we had to win them every night. It didn't come naturally. And then so we were at a point where Vince, he wasn't drawing any money with us. We were doing a great show. We were entertaining the people like crazy, but we weren't drawing any money. And that's not what Vince wanted. Vince wants to draw money. So when he came up to us and said, guys, we're like at a kind of a dead end here now. Like, it's if we don't turn you heel or something like that, we may have to give you guys a break or something and let you go. So then we said, okay, let's try it. What the hell? The way he killed every territory that existed. So, if you weren't in the WWF, you weren't nowhere. So we decided, but once we took a taste of it, and God knows it didn't take long, I started having some fun with that stuff, like really getting the fans pissed off, and we had, and the Fabulous Rougeau brothers had so much heat going to, contrary to going to the ring and having to win the people over every match. We'd come out of the curtains with those little American flags, and they wanted to kill us. You know, it was like so it was a great experience.
Yeah, I remember that when you guys turned. I was like shocked. I was like, I can't believe these guys are turning. But I was a kid, you know, and it worked. You guys did great. Now later on, while you were there, you know, you and Raymond, whatever happened, the Rougeaus were kind of split up, and
well,
Raymond became a commentator.
Yeah, Raymond quit. Well, you know, we weren't too pleased with the fact that we'd been waiting in line so long to get the belts. And, you know, and then the Brainbuster just came in, Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard, and they just came right in front of us and they grabbed the belts. And we were at a time where we'd been giving 4 years of our time, working hard every night. And we even had marathon matches with the Rockers, like 1 hour matches. We were having them. One day we had a 1 hour match in England. And then we took a flight, came back to the States, and worked another hour match in Philly the same day, like a 2 1 hour matches.
Oh my gosh!
We gave ourselves heart and soul, and we thought it was our time now to take the belts and get a run. And when these guys, for a political reason, they came in with Bobby Heenan and they just passed in front of us, it was like we just lost interest. Like Raymond said, okay, that's it. Like we had enough now. So Raymond retired, and that's when Vince called me back a year later to become the Mountie.
Let's talk about the Mountie. One of my favorite characters.
He always gets this man.
One of my favorite characters. Again, you were with Jimmy Hart. What was, you know, you did it so naturally. It's almost like you did the job as a Canadian Mountie when you were your prior life or something. I mean, it was so good. How did you come up with that character? And
no, Vince came up with the character. I came up with the shock stick. But
okay,
so it was a combination there, and I came up with Jimmy Hart as my manager because when Vince called me back, I said, you know, after working with Jimmy, you know, he's so professional. I told him, I said I knew he was saying that this gimmick would get over, that he would give it a good push, and then so I said, well, okay, I want Jimmy Hart as my manager. That would be one of my conditions to come back, because Jimmy Hart, if you talk about Jimmy Hart, he is one of the he's a GOAT. He's the best manager in the whole business. And you know, people are going to say that. Of course, Jacques, you're going to say that. He was your manager 2 times. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm going to explain myself so people know why, so I could back up my words. Jimmy Hart is the best manager in the world because he was the only manager, the only one that would come on the screen, and he wouldn't say, like all the other managers would come in and say, let me tell you something. I got the brains to do this. I got this. I got that. I'm smart. I know what to do. I got money. Jimmy Hart was the only manager who would never once talk about himself. It was always, let me tell you something about my man. Let me tell you something about my man. It was always putting the heat and the interest and the credibility on his character that was with him. And so for a guy who works with him, it's like, what a great thing, you know. He never so we would have to say we got the greatest manager, you know, because he would never talk about himself. And you know, I go in Comic-Cons today, I sign autographs around the world still today. I go to Comic-Cons, and you should see the line in front of Jimmy Hart's desk when he's sitting there, because so he's really one of the best. So when I came in as the Mountie, I wanted to have Jimmy Hart as my manager again. Another thing too, why I wanted to have Jimmy Hart as my manager is because he was like me. He was an anti-club, nightclub, anti-drugs, anti-alcohol. And, you know, so we were business. When we were on the road, we were business, always dressed nice, always on time, always credible, always reliable. So when we'd land in places, like I remember landing in London, you know, where everybody would be looking to see where they could get their drugs or get their bar that night, you know, we'd be looking for a Toys R Us to go see where our dolls were, you know, or figurines. Or, you know, we'd be going looking bootlegging shops in the underground in London, you know, or just trying to find posters and pictures of the WWF that were illegal so we could frame them and bring them home, you know. And so Jimmy and I, we saw eye to eye. You know, I knew that every time that I had to go somewhere or be somewhere with Jimmy Hart, I'd never have to wait for him. He was always 15 minutes early. He was always so Jimmy Hart, you need to understand how credible he was in this business.
I met Jimmy Hart about a year ago at a local event here in Springfield. Well, in Harrison, actually. Nice guy. I got a quick story for you if you don't mind. I brought my son. He's special needs. He's autistic. Anyways, we get in line with Jimmy, and he comes up, hey, how you doing? Great, thank you. He gave us, I'll sign this picture, $10, whatever it was. And he goes, I'll sign this poster for free. And I said, okay. So I paid him. And then he goes, you want to take a picture? Yeah. I said, okay, Bub, that's my son. You take the picture. Oh, no. You both get in here. This is all a complete package deal. Because sometimes some people want extra. If you got somebody else. Jimmy's like, no, get him in here. Such a nice guy. I talked to my son for a few minutes and he was just overjoyed he loved it. So Jimmy is a great guy.
Just to come back to what you were saying, I had my own business in Montreal after I left the WWF in 96 and 97. And I had my own professional business, my wrestling organization. And you know that at my wrestling school, I taught to special kids and autistics, and I made them wrestle in front of 5,000 people, 11,000 people, 10,000 people.
Oh, wow.
I brought them to live their dream. So I've always been very close to those kids. I just want you to know that.
Thank you very much.
They have a special place in my heart.
Yeah, that means a lot to me. Thank you very much. No, he's 28 years old. But he's a great kid. I call him a kid. He's not a kid.
They're the best. They're the best. There's no gray zone, black or white. No. They like you or they don't. They're the best. I'm going to tell you something that's very special. Take a second to tell you this.
You bet.
There's normal people here, and there's autistic people here, special kids there. I should be around here somewhere in the middle. So I identify myself very well with those kids, very, very well.
Yeah. Like you said, it's black or white. They like you or they don't. So I understand that.
Okay, let's get back to the Mountie here. We're gonna go.
Mountie. So you did the Mountie,
big boss man who went to jail.
You did the Mountie, which was a great character, and then you formed a tag team called the Quebecers.
Wait a minute. Do you remember that jailhouse match?
Yeah, I do remember. Let's talk about it then. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. That night I had to spend in jail, because Big Boss Man, the loser. Do you remember that match? It was a pay-per-view.
I do remember. Yeah, actually, I do remember. Yeah,
that was amazing to work that with Big Boss Man. And I got to tell you something else about the Mountie. I just want to finish with this. You know that the Mounties in Canada. A lot of people ask me, how come, Jacques? Because when I took the belt from Brett, I only took it for 2 days to switch it to Piper. It was only I was the shortest reign champion 2 days. Intercontinental champion. But at that time, Vince was having a lot of pressure from the Mounties in Canada, the real Mounties, and they took an injunction, a lawsuit against the WWF because I was giving such a bad image to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. So they banned me. So they banned me from Canadian TV. They really did. So that's why my character didn't last long. So there's a good way to look at it and a bad way to look at it. The bad way to look at it is it didn't last long enough. But the good way to look at it is I was doing a great job. If they banned me,
you got a lot of heat. Yeah. Wow. I didn't know that. That's amazing. Hello, everyone. This is Brian Ferguson, the host of Bumps and Thumps, the talk of wrestling. I want to tell you about a new podcast out called Fouls Count Anywhere. It is a classic pro wrestling podcast that brings you the legends of wrestling with true wrestling fans Chris DiCarlo and Charlie Turner. They bring on guests that are legends in this business, and as well as wrestlers of today, promoters, referees, you name it. They have them on there, folks, and I encourage you to listen to them. If you're on YouTube, watch them. They drop every Saturday. They have their podcast. They drop it in the afternoon. So look forward to that podcast coming out. Falls Count Anywhere podcast with Chris DiCarlo and Charlie Turner. Folks, you will not be disappointed. I guarantee it. And enjoy the podcast. Quebecers. You switched to Quebecers. Then you win the tag team title 3 times.
Yeah.
So what was the difference between, and I'll be honest, I don't mean any offense by that, but I thought you and your brother.
You're going to be honest?
Your brother I thought you and your brother were better. That's my opinion. I mean,
okay. I respect
no
that.
disrespect to.
No, I respect that. But it was a different era.
Yeah.
It was a different kind of team. me and Raymond, we were good technicians, smart wrestlers, knew how to get the heat behind the referee's back where the referee would never see us cheat. So that would really put a lot of heat on us. Carl and I, we were more like killers. We came in with those big devastating moves off the top rope, and Carl was like a big bulldozer that I'd throw around, and I did. So it was a different kind of wrestling. And you know what? If they ask me to which one did I like working with most, like, my brother or Carl, I would have to say I enjoyed working with my brother a lot because, there's nothing thicker than blood, and then, but Carl was amazing too. Like I said, it was amazing. And and I'll never forget the time that we came at WrestleMania 10 and we wrestled the Men on a Mission, moms there, the big moms. And Mabel was just such a nice guy. And, we used to play cards when we'd go overseas in the buses. When we travel, we play cards, me and him, all the time. But he was such a nice guy. And then I came up to him when we were playing cards one night and I said, hey, we were getting close to WrestleMania 10. And I told him, I said, Mabel, I'd like to do something, with Carl and Carl and I, we told him, I said, we'd like to double suplex you, like, give you a double suplex. And we did that in the match, and he had never left his feet. He'd never left his feet.
He's a big guy.
640 pounds. And we got him up there for the double suplex. If you go check back the tapes of WrestleMania 10, you'll see the double suplex. We missed it the first time, and then we just regrouped with the adrenaline of being at WrestleMania, and we just got him up there. And so Carl was different. It was really, it was a good time also. It really was.
Yeah. And I don't mean no disrespect to the man. I mean, you guys were a great team. Obviously, you won the belts 3 times, but I never could figure out why you guys ever won the belts when you were with your brother, but you kind of explained that. So I get it. It's politics.
But you're not the only one. Everywhere I go, everywhere I go, people, and I don't want to bring it up myself. It's pretty embarrassing, but I got to tell you that everywhere I go in Comic Cons and everywhere I go sign autographs, people will ask me, like, how come you guys are not in the Hall of Fame? Like,
I was gonna, why aren't you in the Hall of Fame?
And I think Vince, we had a big fight, me and Vince, over the years, and we never made up. And I know it's political because the biggest angles I did with Big Boss Man, with the Hart Foundation, with the Rockers, with the Tito Santana, with the Bret Hart again in singles, they're all there. Everybody that I work with, they're all there. So I'm saying to them, the Steiners and everybody that I work with. Everybody that I work long angles, like 6 months, a year, 2 years, 4 years, that I entertain 20,000 people per night, 25 nights a month around the world. They're all in the Hall of Fame. And so I know it's personal, but I'm saying maybe one day Vince will turn the page and get over it, or maybe the fans will get together and the fans will start asking for us to be in the Hall of Fame. I think for the 10 years, 11 years that I was in the WWF, entertaining everybody at 100 miles an hour, 100% every night, and performing to my best and really getting the crowd up on their feet and doing what I had to do. I think there's a little place for me in the Hall of Fame there. I think so.
Oh, I'll be honest. I thought you were already in there. I really did. But, fans, if you're listening or watching, we got to get out behind Jacques and his brother Raymond.
That'd be awesome.
Sure. And push these guys, Vince
you know why, Brian? You know why, Brian? I'll tell you why, Brian, they got to do that. Because, this will be the only time that the Mountie didn't get his man.
That's right. And I got to tell you, well deserved and well overdue. He's turned the page on other people that have gotten in that Hall of Fame. Ultimate Warrior was one of them. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'm just saying, fans, we're going to push it because Jacques, underappreciated in my opinion.
And I know that everyone that's in the Hall of Fame deserves to be there. I'm not taking that away.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not Donald Trump, but anyway, all I have to say that, but everybody, there's a lot of great workers. There's 2 this year that are going to be put in there. Steve Kern, I think Bobby Eaton. Bobby Eaton, what a great guy! I'm so happy for him. It's too bad that he's not there anymore to receive it. But there's a lot of great guys. I'm not the only one. So I'll just take a number and hopefully one day it'll happen.
Well, I hope so too. It's overdue, long for sure. couple more questions for you. I want to know who was you talked about a few people, but who was like one of your most favorite people to work with, either as an opponent in the ring or as a tag team? I mean, your brother Raymond, obviously, and Carl.
Pretty easy. It's pretty easy. You know, I got to go with Ray Traylor, Big Boss Man.
Big Boss Man.
Big Boss Man. You know, night after night after night, we worked together and we just killed each other in that ring. And I got to say also, although Jim the Anvil Night Art was a little stiff, the Hart Foundation was really fun to work with. I enjoyed working with Brett very much, with my brother Raymond, and Brett in the singles. I enjoyed that. Tito Santana. I love to work with Tito Santana. He was just a nice and good guy in the ring. He would never hurt you. You know, there's some of those guys that you work with in the ring that are real wrestlers. Guys that would go in the ring, and if we go to do a move and we're in midair in the move, and it could happen to anybody that you lose your balance or something. Well, the real wrestler is going to make sure that you still fall straight and he falls crooked. The one that's in control will take the bad fall instead of getting back his balance and throwing you crooked, you know, and him falling. So that's when you see a real good wrestler, a wrestler that you want to work with night after night, because you're giving yourself, your body in there. And, you know, and if you have a guy who takes care of your body, and that makes it the whole world, you know,
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk a little bit about your business, your wrestling academy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Let's talk about that. You know, I did some research on it. You've got a thing going on right now, and I will put it in here.
You know what? Why don't we just go ahead, Brian, and show the video to tease the people in? So try to show the video here of QT Marshall, what he has to say.
All right, let's talk.
This is the second year of Wrestling Academy. Let's roll this video.
Let me look at it real quick. I gotta just give me a second here. I gotta pull it up. And we will definitely get it going here.
This is amazing.
Okay. Can you see it, Jacques?
I see it. I'm watching.
Okay, here we go.
Wrestling Academy 2023. This is QT Marshall, and I am standing on one of the very rings here at the Nightmare Factory that 3 winners will have the opportunity to train in for 12 weeks, alongside myself, the other coaches, Daddy S, AEW star and WWE Hall of Famer Billy Gunn, and the winner of the 2023 WWE Royal Rumble, the man that will headline WrestleMania, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. Now, in addition to the 12-week training, of course, the cash prize of $10,000 will go in your pocket as well. But it seems like every time I make one of these videos, I always like to up the ante. And this one is no different. But this one will also help me achieve a personal goal. I've never wrestled in Montreal, Canada, and after a lot of talks, Jacques Rougeau and myself, you see, we've made a deal. Now, for the semifinalists, while you won't make it to the finals, there is a consolation prize. So I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is one of you will be chosen to step in the ring at the finals to go one-on-one with QT Marshall. And it's funny I said good news because the bad news is the exact same thing. You're going to step in the ring with QT Marshall. There's only one way for me to truly see if you have what it takes. And that's for you to go one-on-one with the former God's gift and beat me in the middle of the ring. So semifinalists, get ready. Finalists, get ready. I am excited to come back to Montreal. I am literally chomping at the bit, standing in the ring, just waiting. So Wrestling Academy 2023, while last year was incredible, I already feel that this year is going to be astronomical.
Wow.
There it is.
So where do I start, Brian? You better say something fast before I start talking.
Hey, I just want to know how this got started, your partnership with the Nightmare Factory, and the prize money that you're giving away for these contestants that make it so far in. Tell us how this all started and how this came about.
This is almost a miracle, I'm 63 years old and I'm still living my passion like crazy.
Yeah.
And this started with my girlfriend, me and my girlfriend, a couple of years back. And there was this competition in Quebec for the singing competition, and it was called Star Academy, in Star Academy, and the winner of Star Academy, of a Quebec singer, male or female, would end up going to the Bell Center to sing side by side with Celine Dion. So that was so I looked at that, and then I was saying, like, wow. And then I've been doing podcasts for a couple of years, during COVID and stuff, just doing nothing, and have all these entertainers come into my podcast, and there, the winner of the Star Academy, she came into my podcast, and I start looking at her, and then my girlfriend and I start thinking, wow, what if we did that with wrestling? So we went to the Club Soda in Montreal last year. I started getting sponsors. We got 4 sponsors of $5,000. And then we had judges. We had judges by the ring, and then I'd asked across Canada. I sent messages to all the indies federations. If you want to participate in this thing, there's 4 winners that are going to win $5,000. Plus, I had got the number for QT Marshall's wrestling school, and I didn't know QT, so I called them up out of nowhere. And I just out of the blues there, cold call, like, hi, Mr. Marshall, this is Jacques Rougeau. And, we started talking, and I have this contest, and he says, sure, man. He says, so I said, QT, I said, Mr. Marshall, I said, what I want is one day. I just want one day. So my 4 winners of $5,000 this year that are coming from Canada, from Nova Scotia all the way to Vancouver, the inscriptions are coming in. So we paid the plane tickets in, we paid the hotels. And so I said, the only thing I want is there's going to be 4 winners of 5,000, but I'd like to give them a taste of international a little bit. So I said, I'd like to take them to Atlanta to your school and spend one day, just one day. And I would like for you to take them in and treat them like they were superstars, like to see how good they are in the ring, to wrestle with them and have them do an interview and see if they have potential, to maybe make it to the big leagues. So he says, Mr. Rougeau, he says, I'd be pleased to do that. So here's the funny thing. I got to tell you, Brian, this is funny. There's so many things I have to say. I used my notoriety. So I started doing podcasts around the world. Like I was talking to Zashman in Australia. I was talking in England. I was talking and telling them about Wrestling Academy in Canada and this competition. And so the next thing, I've been doing podcasts for about a couple of months now, and I'm doing a bunch of them. Then finally I get a message from QT Marshall that says, Mr. Rougeau, you got to call me. So I'm going like, oh shit, I hope I didn't do something wrong. I hope I didn't do anything wrong, So he tells me, gets me on the phone. He says, listen, he says, Mr. Rougeau, he says, what are you doing? I says, what do you mean? What am I doing? He says, my phone at the Nightmare Factory is red. He says, I'm getting calls from everywhere. People are seeing you talk about the Nightmare Factory. So I was thinking, he said, instead of giving them one day, he says, why don't we give them 1 week at the Nightmare Factory? So I said, wow. So I put that on my group chat, all the wrestlers that were in the group chat that were part of the thing. And so they went berserk, they went crazy. They were so happy. So here I am, keep on going, doing podcasts and podcasts. And about 6 months later, he calls me up again and he sends me a video. And in the video, he just sends to me, he says, hey, I heard Jacques Rougeau's doing a podcast tonight with Nick Podcast in Montreal. He says, I just want to say good luck to the winners. It's coming shortly now. And I just want to let you know that we're going to be giving you 3 months at the Nightmare Factory. And I went, like, my jaw just fell down, like 3 months. I said, holy shit, 3 months. And then I put that on the group chat. So then everybody went just wild. So then that was getting bigger and bigger on Facebook and all my social medias. And then next thing you know, is this guy Zashman from Australia calls me back. He said, Jacques, he says, I have a toy company, figurines, wrestling figurines. He says, I'd like to do 4 figurines for your winners, And then the next thing, about 1 month before the show starts, the quarterfinals in Montreal at the Club Soda, all the shows were there at the Club Soda. He calls me up, QT Marshall, and he says, Jacques, he says, why don't you tell your winners that the 4 winners will be coming to wrestle on the debut of AEW in Toronto, the first time in Canada. I'm going to put them on the card. So they went to wrestle there. So last year, listen to this, Brian. Last year I had 41 inscriptions. I had like 940 I had like 19 from Canada, all over Calgary, 19, and I had 20 from my province of Quebec. So after everything happened this year and everybody won the prizes, they spent the 3 months at the Nightmare Factory, which I went to see in the last fall. I went to see him there and all that. I had this year I had 71 inscriptions, and only like 11 from Quebec and like 60 of them from Canada, because everybody passed the word out like, hey, Jacques is really legit.
Yeah.
He's giving the money. We're going to the Nightmare Factory for real. This is happening. So this is getting, so now the video you just saw was lately where I asked, so QT decided we talked, and he decided to say, Jacques, why don't we give a bonus to the semifinalists? Because last year, QT Marshall was on the show on a giant screen from Atlanta on the finals to choose the 4 winners from Atlanta, from his home, but it was happening in Montreal, but he was on the giant screen to watch the whole show. And we would eliminate them as we'd go along, we'd eliminate in the finals. So after the show last year, I told QT, I called him the next morning, I said, QT, how'd you like the experience? And he says, I loved it. He says, are we doing it again this year? So now, so then before I got off the phone, he said, but it's going to be different this year, Jacques. He says, when you come to see your winners in the fall at the Nightmare Factory, he says, I want you to bring all your videos, inscriptions, and I want to choose them with you this year. It's not only you, it's me and you. So he says, I want to choose the ones that we're taking. And next thing, he says, I don't only want to be in the finals on the giant screen next year, I want to be there in the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and the finals. And then he just said he wants to come and wrestle in Montreal against one of the semifinalists who's not going to make it because there's 3 winners of $10,000. So, you know, like he's not going to make it. So the ones who are not going to make it on the last show in August this year in the semifinals, they're going to have to wrestle QT in September on the finals. And what an opportunity. So this, I think, Brian, has become a pet project for like QT Marshall. It's become like, we became like his baby there. Like, you know, he's into this thing a lot. And you know what is the greatest things, Brian? I got to tell you one of the greatest things.
What's that?
Well, last year, when I did that deal, there was Billy Gunn, QT Marshall, and Glazier that owned the Nightmare Factory. And then Glazier disappeared, and it's Cody Rhodes that came in. And now Cody Rhodes just won the Royal Rumble, and he's going to be main event in WrestleMania. And so now you may want to show this picture that I sent you. I don't know if you got this. I put a picture, but it's very interesting. Canadian talent to see this there.
You're gonna have to give me a second.
Take a second there. This is the most inspiring thing.
I'll tell you, I'll be honest, I never saw the I never heard of the
Wrestling Academy.
Of the, not yours, but the Nightmare Factory. And I was just I was like, this is awesome. And it was amazing. And I got to pull this up. It might take me a minute.
Take your time, but take your time. You know, there's 2 things. You know, there's 2 things that are very, very important, Brian, in this business. And one of the things is being at the right place at the right time, and the other one is knowing the right people. And now my 3 winners of $10,000 are going to the Nightmare Factory in Atlanta, and they're also going to be like trained by the WWE Cody Rhodes, the AEW Billy Gunn, and then the QT Marshall AEW. So we're talking about 3 superstars that are going to be training. So what I'm saying that you got to be trained, being at the right place at the right time, and knowing the right people. Everything's happening for the participants this year in Wrestling Academy.
Yeah. All right. I think I got it.
Picture, huh?
Yeah, I got it now. I think I got it. There's the picture.
Let me see it. Not yet. Yeah, I see it. Try to get it bigger there. So we don't see the picture.
I'm trying.
Trying to get it bigger.
I'm trying. It ain't want to cooperate with me very good.
Just awesome. Anyways,
it is awesome. It is a good picture.
You see the 3 guys there that are there, and it said
Billy Gunn, Cody, and QT Marshall. Those 3.
And who will be trained by the best?
That is amazing.
So when I send that, so you can bring back the picture, Brian. So you can bring back our chat. So when I send that to the group chat, this picture that my girlfriend made, because my girlfriend's having fun now. She's doing all kinds of stuff there to inspire everybody. So when I put that on today, a bunch of people just shared it. Like, you know, they're saying, hey, like, you know, how you're going to be trained by a guy from WWE, from 2 guys from AEW. And like I said, being at the right place at the right time, knowing the right people. And you know, my 4 winners last year, they spent 3 months at the Nightmare Factory. One of them, Jeremy Prophet, one of my close friends from Montreal, he was a student of mine, like when he was 16 years old. He told me when he got back from there, he says, Jacques, he says, I wrestled in the Carolinas, in Florida, I wrestled in Georgia, everywhere. I made contacts. And so they made a lot of contacts. And so what a great, and to be trained by these specialists, I'm calling these specialists, these teachers that have been in the business and succeeded. It's not like being trained by a wrestler who's never made it in the big leagues, because there's so, like I said before, there's so much to learn more than just taking bumps and thumps in the ring. It's like you gotta learn how to behave in the dressing room. You gotta learn how to be nice to the people. You gotta learn to be. There's a lot of things that you gotta learn. Diplomacy, and so when you get trained by these guys who've been there and done that, then it gives you a great opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, that is an amazing opportunity. Your academy, I looked at your website, and you've got a lot of endorsements from a lot of legends. Warlord, Ronnie Garvin, Haku. There's
Ric
like
Flair, Ric Flair.
Yeah, Ric Flair. There's like 20 guys on there.
Undertaker. Wait, Bret Hart. We got them all. Everybody that wrestles. Even I want to take just 1 second to say I'm so sorry about the news of Lanny Poffo. He was a good friend of mine, and he endorsed my show. If you go there, you'll see a video of Lanny Poffo. But the Ricky Dragon Steamboat did it. There's so many guys that believe in this project, and it's amazing. So if you have a chance, people, go on wrestling-academy.ca. You'll be able to put the website, I'm sure, at the bottom of your screen eventually.
I will.
And put it in French also, because sometimes in English it has a hard time getting in there. So it's Lutte Academy, like my shirt here. Lutte Academy. So it's lutteacademy.ca. You could put both addresses in English and French, because what you can do, Brian, what's is amazing about this website that we have is like you could go see last year's competition. Like you could go check it out. So if you go check out the competition last year, and by the way, which is full of mistakes because it was my first time producing, so it's horrible in production. But the content is good. All the wrestlers are good and everything's good. But this year it's going to be a lot better in the production. But you wait till you see the talent that subscribed this year. You go on the website, Brian, you see the picture of all the talent that's there now. You can just click on their picture, and then you can see a video of them in the ring and talking too, like a 30-second video. So you get to know all the contestants before the show starts on the 7th of May in Montreal.
It is a great website, and it's put together well. I checked it out the other day when we scheduled this. It is good, and I'll have it both in English and French down there.
Thank you.
And
all
your social media outlets that you have, your YouTube, everything. So, Mr. Jacques Rougeau, appreciate you coming on today. Is there anything else you want to put out there for our fans coming up?
I just want to say thank you to all the fans that supported me. I want to thank you, Brian, for people like you who did podcasts with me and are sharing the news of Wrestling Academy. We Rome wasn't built by one person and in one day. So I thank you for all the help, Brian, and just thank you for putting the links. I'm telling everybody, stay tuned for the biggest competition Canada's ever put together. My girlfriend and myself are responsible for that. Wrestling Academy 2023, and can't wait to see who the 3 winners of $10,000, and they go spend 3 months with Cody Rhodes, Billy Gunn, and QT Marshall at the Nightmare Factory in Atlanta. This is just going to be amazing.
That'd be a wrestler that's starting out's dream is winning that and then going to that academy for another 3 months of training. That's just, I can't. If I was 30 years younger, I'd do it, but I'm 52 years old.
I almost feel like joining myself. And what's amazing too is like you're talking about, as of now, $50,000 of sponsorship. Like we already have it. We got the $30,000 for the 3 winners of $10,000. We also got $20,000 for the plane tickets coming from Vancouver, from Halifax, from Nova Scotia, from Winnipeg. I got them coming from all over. So go check the talent out.
Yes,
they're very, very enthused about this competition, but not as much as me and QT Marshall.
Yeah, Jacques, thanks for coming on, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Jacques Rougeau, WWE. Gonna be a Hall of Famer. We're gonna push it. Check out his Academy website. And look at that. My God, you're in excellent shape. You probably could win that competition if you weren't running it.
I got the looks, but the stuff's there.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, one more time, Mr. Jacques Rougeau. Thanks for coming on. Folks, if you're listening, thank you. If you're watching, thank you. And if you haven't, please subscribe, and we will talk to you soon.